Hello, welcome to Meet the Author, sponsored by Author Event Network in partnership with Bremerton Public Access Television. I'm your host, Guy Morris. Author Event Network is a nonprofit association of local authors who sign books at local festivals, fairs, and events. Our guest today is Steve Scribner. Hi, Steve. How are you doing?
Hi, Guy. I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Thank you for joining us. Exciting to talk to you today.
Yeah, you too. I've been wanting to do one of these.
Well, I know you've been part of our group for about a year now, and having all of those wonderful experiences in the booth, rain or shine.
Rain, yes.
You've got a lot of books to talk about, so let's start with, tell the audience what inspired you to become an author, and when did you start writing?
When did I start writing? Well, my mom tells this story about when I was maybe 4 years old. She said that I asked her one time, I told her I would like to write a book or write a story, but I don't know how to write. And so she said, well, that's okay, I can write the words, you just tell me the story. So I guess that happened. I don't know what the story was about or what I wrote or what I said and she wrote or whatever, but anyway, I guess that happened. And then later on, when I was in elementary school, my school was quite a ways away from where I lived. And the first part of where I walked, there weren't any other kids with me. So I would make up stories to tell myself on the way. And I guess some of those eventually turned into books, I suppose, but I don't remember what those stories were about particularly. But anyway.
They were make-up stories. My mom used to call them lies, but I wasn't supposed to do that. But I told her there was professions that made money out of drawing lies. So
called writing and making movies, and,
movies, and songwriting and books, and some journalists,
No comment.
No comment. I know. I'm fun to be around. So, what genres do you write? Why did you choose that genre? And who are your heroes in that genre?
Okay, what genres? Mostly I write fantasy books, and that probably comes because, again, it goes back quite a ways. When I was in 8th grade, I think it was, I was reading The Lord of the Rings, and one time I was walking to class from another class, thinking about Lord of the Rings because I was in the middle of reading it, and I suddenly said to myself, I should write something like that sometime. Now, this is a very strange thing to say to myself because I wasn't thinking about writing anything, or I wasn't even thinking about saying that to myself, but the thought just came to me, and so I started working on making up a fantasy world at that point. And the early versions of it, which I wrote in middle school and high school, were complete Lord of the Rings clones, but since then I've changed it considerably, and it eventually wound up in a very different version as this set of books here, the Tond series.
So tell us about this series then.
Okay.
Tell us about the world. What was it that you started there that ended up there?
What is it that it's a made-up world called Tond, and there are, in the first series, there are two civilizations, the Fjorians and the Karjans, and they've been at war for centuries. But there's something on the horizon that they don't know much about, which is very threatening to both of them. And so people from each of these groups kind of have to learn how to cooperate with each other to fight this other thing, which is a threat to both of them. And when I told some people about that plot line, they thought, it's about global warming, or it's about the threat of nuclear war back in the 80s or something. But it wasn't really about any of those things. It was basically something I made up.
Okay. So how did you pull the inspiration for that conflict and that conflict leading to cooperation?
How did I pull it? Well, I made up the two different worldviews of these two civilizations, which is another point that I get into. If you read below the surface, the subtext, I guess you'd say, whatever, there's a conflict between science and religion, which I don't think should exist.
Okay.
And so it isn't really that one of these civilizations stands for science and one of them stands for religion. That isn't exactly how it works. But one of these civilizations has high-tech gadgets from a previous version of their civilization that blew itself up. And so that could basically stand for science, or what's left of science after this apocalypse or whatever. The other one is a very militaristic empire building type civilization. That's the Karjans. And most of what they do turns out to be the bad side of things. So.
Bad side of things, military.
Yeah.
Well, that goes to reason. That sounds to reason.
Right.
So tell us about your characters and what kinds of experiences do they go through, and how those character arcs. How do you bring in connect our shared humanity into these artificial worlds?
Okay. Main character in the first series is a man named Roland Rosser Keltis, or Roland. He's a Fiorian. And at some point, he and his brother, when they're late teenagers, disobey something that's going around in their world at the time. Do not look at Borog with the fiery eye. Now, you don't know what that means if you don't read the book, but it's something that the two of them do, and as a result, what hits the fan. And I won't tell what happens to one of them, but Roland goes on a quest to rescue him, basically. So
it's a quest story.
It's a quest story.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, those are always fun.
I've given away quite a bit of the plot there.
Do we have any sidekicks or?
Well, along the way,
quest?
He's one of the Fiorians, and remember, they're enemies of the Karjans, and he befriends some Karjans who help him along the way. And I won't go any more into any of that because it gets quite complicated. But
Okay. So there's a quest story between the two former enemies,
yes,
who are trying to decide how they can collaborate to defeat a common enemy.
Common enemy, right?
Common enemy. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. We can all been there. I grew up in some gang neighborhoods. I know this block and that block. You got to have friends. Tell us about your personal experiences. What made you feel compelled to tell these stories in particular? Was there anything that you personally experienced that made you feel like you had to express yourself in these worlds?
Okay, to answer that question, I might shift over to one of my other books, the one with the gray cover over there, called Ussers and the Echo of Nothing. That is Ussers, it's not users. There are two S's there. Ussers are something that this main character, Tony, made up when he was a toddler. And yet later on in his life, he starts seeing Ussers for real. Stuck on walls and in different places and so on. And of course that makes no sense because he made them up when he was a kid, so why are they here and whatever. But during some of his childhood, he encountered some bullies in school. And I encountered bullies in school, so I've based it somewhat on some of my experiences. Although I draw a conclusion in that book, which I don't think a lot of people have noticed, and that's that bullies sometimes bully people in order to become popular. And the bullies I encountered in school were actually popular kids. So, if I go into any more of that, it will tell the plot line. So, anyway, at some point, Tony, much later on, after he's seeing Ussers and so on, and it turns out it has something to do with a medieval manuscript called the Vision of Tondalis, which is a real medieval manuscript, by the way. And
from what country, what time period?
Medieval European. I've heard it was originally Dutch, but I've heard it was also maybe from somewhere in Italy. Okay. And the main character in the manuscript is Irish. So I don't know where it comes from originally.
Dutch, maybe Italy, but the main character is Irish.
Yes.
I love it.
So I don't know. But it's a set of visions of hell at first and then heaven that this character has. And Tony, the character in my book, eventually figures out that the reason he's seeing Ussers has something to do with this manuscript. And I won't go into any more about the plot line, but it's a very weird book, I'll put it that way.
Okay. But inspired by your experience with the bullies and trying to kind of combat their popularity at your expense and standing up to them and all that. And Now, did you ever have the moment where you were able to stand up to the bully?
Actually, no, except the bullying stopped later on.
Okay,
I suppose I actually did, but maybe didn't realize it.
Well, sometimes bullies stop when they just get bored with the process. It's not getting them the rewards. Sometimes they stop because you're not really reacting to them and it's not really serving any good. And sometimes you stop because somebody broke their nose. And that was my story, but we won't go there. Now, so tell us about your current books and why you title them that way and where you're going with the series. I know you have one series here.
Okay.
You've had some independents. Which is the latest one, and where's that going?
The latest one is this Reflections, which is a complete experiment.
Okay.
I happened to check out a book of abstract expressionist art from the library and was looking through it, and the author of the book was talking about how these artists were expressing the angst and dread of World War II and the Cold War and so on. But looking at those pictures, I didn't see them as expressing anxiety.
Angst and dread.
Right. I saw them as washes of color that can actually be, can express beauty or tranquility or something.
Or nearsightedness.
Huh?
Or nearsightedness?
That's possible. Close. Anyway, so I thought maybe I could. I've done some abstract art in the past. Just some of it is actually part of my music.
Okay.
Related to the music, but I thought I could put these some of them into a book talking about how art can express tranquility and so on, and make this book of abstract art. It's an art book. I've never done an art book before, so I don't know. So I made it.
Did you do the art, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you did the art, and then you wrote some abstract, some words to go with the art.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Flash fiction, some haiku poetry, and then some explanations of the art.
Excellent. Now, is that part of the novel series, or is it just a separate thing?
It is not.
Okay.
It's a separate thing. This one, Grendel Rising. Grendel was named after Grendel in Beowulf, and yes, he's the villain. He is the villain in the second series who arises after the villain in the first series was defeated. Okay. And he has something called the Madstones, which are, they look just like rocks, but if one person holds two of them, and another person holds the other two of them, they originally could transfer the entire knowledge of one language from one person to the other.
Okay.
But then Grendel discovers that they can also be used to implant all kinds of ideas in people's minds, and he starts making people go crazy with this contagious madness.
Oh, okay.
So that's what they're fighting in the second series.
So it's a Lord of the Rings version of the internet.
Yeah. You can say that, yes.
Interesting, okay. And tell us about Franz.
Franz is a collection of short fiction.
Okay.
Of all different genres, and some that don't fit neatly into any genre. 4 of them are fantasy stories set in the same world of Tond as the series and Grendel. There's 3 science fiction stories. There's 1 romance story. It's not too steamy, but it does qualify as a romance story. There's 1 comedy, which is originally based on something that happened to me when I was a kid. At the time, I was mortified, but looking back on it 50 years later, that was pretty hilarious. Yep. So I wrote it up as a comedy story. Changed all the names to protect the innocent and the guilty, as I say. Yeah. And then there's a couple of experimental stories that do things with wordplay along the lines of James Joyce, Finnegan's Wake kind of thing.
Okay.
So it's a stream of consciousness dreamscape that if you read it literally, it's not going to make sense, but if you look at it at a different way, yeah, it does. It makes sense.
Okay. Now, do all of your books involve sort of the same world building, and where do you get the inspiration for your world building?
Okay, I have to go back a long ways again. Back 40, 45 years, 50 years. When I was a kid, I encountered some art by Hieronymus Bosch in a book. And he was a Dutch painter in the early 16th century who took the little miniature details that they did in medieval manuscripts. They had little whimsical characters in the sidelines, and he turned those into horror, into monsters that he used in his paintings.
Okay.
And I looked at those monsters and thought those would be good villains in a fantasy series. So I called them gruntags. I don't know where the word came from, except it came from the Karjanic word gruntagsk, which meant manufactured creatures.
So, but these are based on the real manufactured creatures that were created from the old manuscripts.
Right.
So those
created by Hieronymus
basically
Bosch,
say, I should make a villain out of these guys.
Yes. Right.
Okay, interesting. And then you kind of went and built the world around that.
Built the world around. That's how I came up with the villains. The rest of them, the Fiorians, I'm not really sure where they came from originally. We're going to have to edit this. I'm taking too long.
Okay, so you're not sure where those came from, those just part of your imagination?
They're just part of the imagination.
Okay, yeah. Just kind of coming up with new interesting things. Now, what part of yourself do you feel like goes into your characters? Oftentimes as authors, some part of ourselves gets translated into one or more of the main characters. What part of yourself is being translated?
Let me think. In the case of the main character in the first series, maybe most people always feel like they're on a quest to do something. And so I thought maybe that would be a good way to make a character, that he goes on a quest to solve a problem. I think maybe a lot of us feel that we're doing that.
So have you ever felt like you were on a quest to find something, to find an answer, to solve a problem?
Find something, to solve
a riddle or a mystery of some kind?
Yeah, I suppose so. Although I'm not quite sure what that riddle or mystery is in the long run. But
okay. So your quest is to find the reason for the quest.
Bingo.
That explains some of the meandering. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us about your target audience. Who do you think these books will resonate to, and what part of their theme? What are your themes, and how will that resonate with them?
Okay, I'll start with themes first. One of the main themes is of the series anyway is good versus evil, and what is the nature of good? What is the nature of evil? And what makes good good, what makes evil evil.
Okay.
And the conflict between them, and how to either resolve that conflict or defeat evil or whatever. That's one of the main themes. Also, I mentioned it before, religion versus science. How to resolve the conflict between them. I think it has been resolved, but a lot of maybe people don't know that. But yeah. And what was your other question?
Well, what part of your characters, or what are they experiencing through these themes? What do the character arcs look like?
Okay.
So we've got good versus evil, science versus religion. How are your characters resolving those conflicts in themselves?
One of the most interesting versions of that, I think, is in the book I've just finished writing the rough draft of. It's the second book of this second series. It's quite a long book, actually, but it goes very detailed into the made-up religion of Todd.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at it closely, it's pretty obviously what one of our religions here, or it's symbolic of that.
Comfortable saying which one?
There is an obvious Jesus character.
Okay.
But
Messianic. Mm-hmm.
yeah, Messianic. But the main character in that book is a monk in this religion, and he learns all about this religion, and then he learns about the Fiorians that had their technology, their science,
mm-hmm.
and he sees how they cooperate and so on. And then there's something that happens to him at some point. I won't go into it much, but it seems at the end of the book that he has abandoned both the science and
mm-hmm.
his religion. And of course, that will be resolved in future installments of the series.
So he's learning to at least doubt what he knows, or
yes.
question what he knows. That's a good stage for enlightenment, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So we only have time for one more question, and
sure.
So tell us a little bit about your experience with selling directly in the booth, and what are some of the good and positive things or negative things that you're getting from your experience with AEN?
Mm-hmm. I've had fun selling in the booths. I find myself looking forward to it because it's a chance to go out and talk to people and talk to people about books, not only my books, other people's books, and about literature and movies and music and whatever. And I found that people like to, if they look at the series, they'll either buy book one
mm-hmm.
or they'll buy the whole series.
Yeah.
Which is good. I've only been doing it basically 1 year. I did a little bit last year, but basically 1 year, so I haven't had time yet for people to come back
mm-hmm.
and say, oh, I read book one, I'd like to read book two. So I'm looking forward to having that happen next year.
That'll be
yes.
The second year is when it all starts to come together. Yeah. Exactly. Is there anything else about your books that you feel like really makes them stand out relative to your competition?
Maybe... I've seen this in the booths, actually. A lot of people come by and they notice the writing in here, and
Bingo.
They notice they ask me if it's a conlang, constructed language, and I say yes, it is. And people are often interested in the languages and the history that I made up in the cultures, and even the food, because I have I don't print them out as recipes, but there are lots of dishes in there that I've made up, and I've actually tried to cook them at home, and some of them come out pretty good. So,
Klingon borscht is very popular.
Okay. Yep.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you as part of the group. Fun books and lots of imagination. And thank you for watching Meet the Author. Come to meet all the AEN authors during the summer and the holiday season in Seattle and Portland, and keep on reading.